Hi class. So before I jump in, I just want to touch base with everybody. I know this is a really challenging time, and I hope everyone is doing as well as can be expected. So just know that my thoughts are with you and with your families. So as we move to getting this course online, you can expect these just brief videos from me at the start of each lecture to sort of alert you to a few of the most important or interesting things that I think are within that presentation. So today's topic is Dada. This is an art movement ranging between about 1916 and 1925. And there's no common style, medium within this movement. It's really just this loose group of artists that all kind of had these same ideas, same ideals. And what it's really known for is confronting the status quo of art. So this movement actually kind of gets ignored a lot, but I think it actually has huge, long-ranging impacts on the history of art. So I want to alert you to a couple noteworthy things. One is this idea of the ready-made. So this is generally credited to Marcel Duchamp, and this is just this idea that an artist is able to claim anything they want as their art. So Marcel Duchamp did this by taking in these sort of mass-produced objects and calling them his art. So without making any or very little changes to the object, he would just say that was his art, right? So this really gave artists in the future the power to say that anything that they want to do, that can be their art, right? So that has impacts on things like appropriation art, on social practice, on different actions and performances being considered art. Okay, so a lot of the stuff we've already been talking about in this class kind of can be traced back to this idea of the ready-made. The most famous ready-made is called the fountain, which is a urinal put on its side, tilted 90 degrees, and signed with the name R. Mutt. Okay, and this is generally credited to be a creation of Marcel Duchamp. However, there's a lot of recent scholarship that actually puts that into question. So at the same time Duchamp was working, there was this other artist, the Baroness Else von Freytag-Loringhoven, working out of New York. She was another Dada artist. She also was making ready-made objects, found object art. And she was total revolutionary. She did crazy things like shave her head, dye her hair green. She was constantly arrested for public nudity and shoplifting, and would just do kind of crazy things like wear postage stamps on her face as makeup, or show up to be a model for another painter and really kind of do an act of performance art instead of just be that person's model. Like one time she showed up to this guy's house so that he could paint her, and she was wearing nothing when she took off her trench coat underneath except for a bird cage with a bird in it hanging around her neck, and a bunch of fruit on her head as a hat. So she was a character. So there was this exhibition where the fountain was submitted as a work of art. That piece was rejected, and Duchamp is the one who sort of took in the piece and then took it back when it was rejected. It was photographed and then thrown away, and then kind of forgotten about until years later when Andre Breton discovered the photographs and then credited that piece to Marcel Duchamp. And by this time the Baroness was dead. So what we now know is that Duchamp actually wrote a letter to his sister at the time of the exhibition stating that he submitted the work for a female friend of his. And we also know that the Baroness was going by the pseudonym of Richard Mutt at that time. And remember I said that the fountain was signed R. Mutt. So we have kind of all these little details that sort of lead us to believe that maybe the story isn't as simple as we thought, and that the Baroness probably is the actual artist behind the fountain. So I just like to sort of throw that in there. Again, like if you go to the Tate's website, who owns the fountain, they'll say that Duchamp created it. And then if you go all the way down in their notes, they'll say, oh, maybe this other lady made it. So we don't know, and I just think the story is much more interesting and complicated when we kind of put all those details in. So that's all I have for you. Make sure you go through the entire slideshow and the notes on your own. Answer the question of the day through Canvas in your group discussion that I've set up. You're also welcome to ask any questions or pose any comments in that area. I'll be around for kind of a virtual office hours on Monday from 11 to 12. if you want to sort of get some immediate feedback from me. But otherwise, you can always reach me during business hours, like 8 to 5 on Monday through Friday for any comments or questions.